Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with the third and final episode of this Pioneer metagame review, and in this video we're gonna discuss a couple of strategies which weren't necessarily pioneer in their standard format. They may have appeared, but also given the big or extended card pool, these strategies get a critical mass of cards which makes them viable in the format. So without further ado, let's just jump into some of them. So our first one is kind of like a surprise, I think, for most people, but I do think it can happen and we can make it work. Is no other deck than Storm. And I think, yeah, like for many people, the thing what comes to mind is the Legacy or Modern Storm deck, which generally aiming to generate a bunch of mana with good rituals, chain together a lot of spells, and use that spell count to basically find the finisher, which is like Tendrils of Agony in Legacy, or what is the modern one? Jesus Christ, I forget the name. Anyway, so something with Storm which actually kills the opponent. Grape Shot, there you go. Sorry, I really do have problems with names. So either Grape Shot or Tendrils of Agony. So in Frontier, sorry, Jesus, it's my day today. So in Pioneer, I think it will look a little bit different. Instead of having like those one of those like big go off turns, I think what will happen that we will incrementally be able to kill our opponent. So let's look at a couple of the cards. So we actually do have some ritual-esque effects. So Vessel of Volatility is one which you can cast for 2, sacrifice for 2, generate 4 mana. Ironcrag Feet generates 7 mana for 4 red mana. So we can generate a bunch of red mana. And because I think we are not going to necessarily kill our opponent in one turn, Pyromancer's Goggles, Thrill of Possibility becomes really good. Because we can use, like, you know, our finishers can be just simple lightning strikes and then copy them with a lot of times. Thrill of Possibility, we can find new cards, or we can ramp into one of our huge spells like 1000-Year Storm, which technically gives every one of our instant and sorcery Storm, or Apex of Power, which we get 10 mana for 10 mana, so it's technically free. We exile the top 7 card and we can start casting them, so we can generate like a lot of very explosive turns, and we may not end up finishing our opponent in one single turn. Maybe it takes 2 turns, but once this engine gets rolling, it's really hard to basically stop it. Counter spells can only go so much when every one of our spells, like a single opt, can start drawing us like 4 cards if it costs 3 more spells a turn. So I think Storm, I don't know what is the right combination of cards necessary for Storm, but I think it can be a viable strategy, and we keep printing more and more of these like cheap selection filtering spells. The more this deck the better this deck gets. So I think I'm very excited for Storm, and I definitely, you know, spend some time trying to brew this deck together. So with that being said, our next one is Affinity, which is kind of also a classic, and this is also a deck which we can take to many different directions. Here one of the core ideas I try to represent is like cheap creatures getting early to the board and trying to push through excess damage really fast. So we have the Ornithopters, Hangerback Walkers, which are cheap and resilient. We have Ghost Fireblade, so every single, you know, artifact can be a threat, and Soul Artifacts making 5/5s really fast. Shrapnel Blast, 5 damage if you sacrifice an artifact. So this is a deck which can push through a lot of damage very fast. And also one thing is that there might be like different takes on the deck, like across the Greasy's colors, because Improvise is also a strong mechanic from Kaladesh, or like we have cards like Joyra, which keeps our deck cycling. So I don't know what will be the distribution necessary between artifact and non-artifact spells here. I can see like a really aggressive lean low to the ground version with like even Ginger Brutes trying to push through Bomat Courier as much damage as possible as soon as possible, or I can see a more resilient version tending towards the Joyra and trying to, you know, bury our opponents with card and like find more and more threats from the deck, or a combination of those where, you know, key pieces will be aggressive but on the sideboard board, you know, a little bit more resilient, even like Experimental Frenzy. So this is definitely a contender, like cheap and fast artifact aggro in the format. So one thing which is also like kind of resembles a modern deck, so people I think will start brewing this, and as you get more and more good artifact cheap creatures, this deck gets the more scarier. So next one is Elves, and this one I really like, because the reason is why I like it, because this is a very good aggro deck in that sense. It attacks from multiple different angles. So ideally, one thing what we can do is to obviously ramp out our mana. Elvish Mystic, Marvin, Growing Rites of Itlimok can help us generate an absurd amount of mana. We have Beast Whisperer cycling through our deck, we have Elvish Visionary drawing more cards, and we can ramp into like either like Lords, so we can have this like mid-rangey aggro plan. When we cast a bunch of elves, we start casting lords, and we will just have like a lot of 3/4, 3/3 creatures and start attacking with them. Or we can also ramp out like some of the bigger finishers, which can be either Banefire. Banefire is really exciting in this deck because it's uncounterable, no life gain, so it cannot be prevented, and we can start chipping away with our elves, and one time when our opponent is like below 10 life, it's not hard to cast a Banefire X equals to 10, which cannot be stopped, so our opponent's just gonna lose the game. So that's why I think this is this is a very good deck. And there was also this card from which set was that? It was, I think, War of the Spark, the Raisin board, which is technically resembling Craterhoof Behemoth. So this deck is actually one of those decks which already plays the closest to its modern and legacy counterparts, because some of these things what the legacy elves tries to do, generate a bunch of mana, either attack with small creatures or set up a draw engine, bury the opponent in card advantage, or set up a big finisher like Craterhoof, which in our case would be Raisin Board or Banefire. So it's technically is almost like very similar. We even have Graia's Cradle, Growing Rites of Itlimok for this deck. So this is very close to resembling the legacy counterpart, and it's just really like 2 turns slower or like 3 turns slower, so which I expect the format to be. If Legacy is a turn 2 format, probably Pioneer will be a turn 5-6 format, so okay, so 3-4 turns slower, but this is a very exciting deck. I'm so happy that this deck exists, and people, you know, who can't really afford playing Legacy have the chance to play something like this. So thumbs up for Pioneer for having elves. So I'm really excited about this deck. The next one is Zombies. It's a little different aggro deck than the elves. I think, yeah, this is kind of this disruptive, grindy, monocolored, consistent aggro deck. So again, Thoughts is collective brutality that can cover a lot of ground as far as disruption is concerned. And what zombies are trying to be is, one, be very resilient, so force 1/1 trades or even like card advantage like Crypt Breaker. We can use our technically useless cards like Excess Lens to make zombie tokens, tap zombies, draw more cards. Lord of the Accursed, really like surprisingly hard card to deal with. +1/+1 is huge when we have like 3 or 4 creatures, that's like 4+ damage, and the menace is absolutely killing on this card. It makes technically our zombies for the most part unblockable. Death Baron, similar effect, pumping zombies, so we have like access to 8 lords at least, and giving them death touch, especially with menace, is absolutely no joke. And one planeswalker which was never seeing, you know, the light of day in its format was Liliana, Untouched by Death, which is technically built for a deck like this. So the more zombies again released, the better this Liliana will get, and I think it's a very enjoyable aggressive deck. If the format is, you know, playing any fair, this is definitely a contender, and because of the lot of good black discards by Collective Brutality, Thoughts is Duress, This can even be good like in a more combo heavy format, because there's a lot of health disruption here, and we can present enough clock on the board that our opponent may just not be able to get out of it in time. So I'm kind of curious. I feel like more zombies will be a metagame choice, really again when the format is playing more fair, but the same thing is true. The more sets are coming out, zombies will show up eventually, the more good cards will get printed, and obviously maybe it's not gonna be on the top tier of the format, but definitely be a solid tier 2 option, like I don't know, Merfolk in Modern. Sorry Merfolk players, I know Merfolk is the best deck probably, but I don't know how we consider it, but Merfolk is definitely a deck from time to time which can look really good. So zombies will be similar to that in Pioneer. And vampires, so the reason why I put in vampires here, same thing is true, obviously most planes have vampires. You're gonna go back to Zendikar, there will be more vampires, but that's not what makes this deck really exciting. I think this deck is very good in a hyper aggressive format, because it's the life gain aggro deck. So one thing to note, that if the format goes really linear and very aggressive, I think vampires is an excellent choice, because it's really problematic in the early card. Like Legion's Landing produces lifelinkers, which can flip later, producing more lifelinkers. Cards like Martyr of the Dusk, it trades 2 for 1 with the lifelinker. Knight of the Ebon Hand, it's a 1/2 body to begin with, which grows with the game. And we have Resilience, or like Staying Power, like drawing cards with Asylum Visitor, Sorin, Imperious Bloodlord, basically does everything what the deck wants to do, can gain us life, can put out a Champion of Dusk into play, which draws us more cards. So this, and again it has the good black cards and the good white cards for sideboard, like Leyline of Sanctity, Leyline of the Void, Thoughtseize, Duraces, good removal. So this I think is a solid choice. Again, this may not be tier 1 deck, because you know, Marvel and stuff like that. So there are definitely decks out there which can just ignore the game plan of the vampire deck, but again, if the format goes down to the hyper aggressive racing angle, then vampires can be a solid choice. So I would keep my eyes out for this deck. And next one is, this one I think would generate a lot of buzz in the community. So this is the +1/+1 counters deck, and here, like, please know that I'm not suggesting any deck list or any take on this. I think one thing what I would like to highlight with these type of cards, that the +1/+1 counter deck can be built many different ways. So what is interesting with this deck, that obviously what we wanna do, playing creatures which for some reason gets +1/+1 counters. Now we can go one of two ways. There are creatures which get +1/+1 counters by virtue of being damned, like Walking Ballista, Voracious Hydra. They're just good +1/+1 creatures. Or another way of doing it is being Simic from Return to Ravnica, because every set Simic, so in every Ravnica block, Simic has +1/+1 counter team. We can go with the Evolve deck and try to power up those creatures, or we can go with what's the new one? Oh Jesus, what's the name of the mechanic? Adapt, yeah. So we can either go with the Adapt deck, or just playing generally good +1/+1 creatures. So that's why this team was coming back from set to set, and again, more +1/+1 creatures in the future. So this is just gonna get better. And what really makes this deck good is cards like Hardened Scales or Winding Constrictor, which can double up the +1/+1 counters. So those will be key. Launching one of these engine cards early, Once Upon a Time helps find us either the payoffs, either Winding Constructor or something like this. And again, we can power out huge Walking Ballistas, Voracious Hydras, or we can use like an alternative win condition such as Simic Ascendancy. And you know, the more synergies with +1/+1 counters will come out. If there's any card which uses removing +1/+1 counters as a cost, like those cards are excellent here. So I really don't want to suggest any particular build. Watch out for +1/+1 counters, and I can totally see this format having 2 or 3 different +1/+1 counter team deck, because that's how big, you know, the size of the card pool supporting these +1/+1 cards, and anything which is a good payoff using +1/+1s as a resource would make this deck a whole lot better. So this is definitely be, even in modern there's a +1/+1 hardened scales aggro. This is 100% going to exist in Pioneer, and it will be at a point close to the top of the format. Maybe not right now out of the gates, but there will be a time when this will be a significant contender. So watch out, and yeah, sweet deck all around. So next one is Phoenix. Yeah, so now that Phoenix is dead in modern, I think it's not dead in legacy, it's kind of the same. I think it's back in Pioneer. I don't know how much it's back in standard, but if you look at Pioneer, it basically does most of the things what the modern Phoenix deck was doing, is just a little bit slower. So we play here Goblin Electromancer, play or not play, I've seen versions of both. I think as the format matures and there's more like low mana cantrips or low mana spells, I think Goblin Electromancer see less and less play. In the beginning we might just play with Goblin Electromancer, cheap cantrips, opt, Thrill of Possibility, cycles through the deck, and we got Sing in the Eyes back. So this is the card which made the modern deck a lot better because it could stand up a lot against aggression. It requires destroy removal because lightning bolt type of effects doesn't really kill it. Obviously the namesake card Arclight Phoenix, if we chain together 3 spells a turn, we get back our Phoenixes. Thrill of Possibility helps us discard these cards and land them into the graveyard. Yeah, Sing in the Eyes again, solid. Finale of Promise is like technically in and itself can trigger Phoenixes for like 2 mana, it's very easy. Finale, opt into something else, like a 2 mana sorcery spell, and we are good to go here. So yeah, so Phoenix will definitely be a contender with Sing in the Eyes. It's gonna closely resemble the modern deck, the modern version of the deck, so I would watch out for this. I think this is out of the gate a very strong deck in the format. So you may encounter a couple of flip Sing in the Eyes, Arclight Phoenixes. So better dust off some of those modern pieces and re-implement them in Pioneer. Sweet deck, and pick up your Phoenixes if you haven't done so. And the other one is Reanimator. So I'm not certain about this one. The reason is because we don't really have very good reanimation effects, however everything else we do. So Merfolk Secret Keeper, like this is exactly the card which we would want in a Reanimator type deck. 1 mana mill 4, self mill obviously, put back a 0 for war which can buy us time. Thrill of Possibility, if one of our payoffs stuck in our hand, we can discard it, and our reanimation options are not very good. However, I didn't make like, you know, several hours of research, but definitely we don't have spells like Reanimate in Legacy or like Animate Dead in Old School, or like even, I don't know, Goryo's Vengeance and stuff like this. So those doesn't really exist in the format. Our options are like Whip of Erebos, Blood for Bones, so it's not super exciting on that front. However, the payoffs are pretty good. Worthfine Worm, Dracuzad, so we have a lot of like good payoff, and even like whipping back a Worthfine Worm, yeah, or a Dracuzad is a significant advantage. So just swinging in our opponent for 15 will be insane. So yeah, so that these are just yeah, these are just payoffs which will be really good in the format. I think the question is how can we figure out the mana consistency and you know, like transferring ourselves into those initial couple of turns into a fast reanimation. So I think that will be key. But so we kind of have pieces here, and probably more pieces going to get printed, but I think this is definitely a very flavorful deck, and this is something which very rarely exists in a standard format. It's just there isn't enough cards for this, but I think Pioneer will offer us a big enough card pool to start tinkering with a deck like this. So Reanimator is kind of like you know, a dark horse, so it's gonna be there. Watch out for reanimation spells, watch out for good payoff, and there might just be a critical mass of good cards at one point that will really start this deck to show up. And I think the last one is a fan favorite, no else than Mill. So to be frank, I don't really know how to build this deck in Pioneer, but what caught my eyes really is the number of just insanely good milling spells in the format. So we have the Merfolk Secret Keeper, again this is gonna be staple, mill 4, 0-4, slow down the game, Drown Secrets, especially in a mono blue deck, like this is, you know, like every turn we mill our opponent from 2, so 60 cards sounds a lot, but if you think about it, our opponent is technically starting at 53, and if we can land this out and cast like 10 spells, which we can do technically in 3-4 turns, that's already half of their deck. And some of the spells which we gonna cast will be significant milling effects like Merfolk Secret Keeper, or we have some doozies here. So we have Traumatize and Jace Memory Adapt. I think that's the reason why I think this deck can actually make it, because we have effects like, you know, your opponent mills half of their deck. So if they have like 50, I don't know, 50 card in the deck, or not 50 at that time, probably 45, they mill like 22. So that's insane. Like they are at 22 cards left in their deck, casting the Jace Memory Adapt, milling half of that. So they are really on the clock to finish us. And again, think about mill is kind of like the blue burn deck. It's really like, consider the opponent's 50 card deck as their life total, and every one of these spells is actually dealing damage against that life total. So Jace Memory Adapt is technically equal to a 4 damage burn spell. It takes like 10% or say 20% of their opponent's life total, in this case the deck. And also we have like a couple of other things, Ventress Gargoyle, which is kind of like a, you know, like a more aggressive payoff. So we can start milling our opponent, quickly put them down 7 cards and just have 5-4 flyers to bash. It might just be a sideboard transformation strategy here, but I think mill also will have a lot of pieces, if not being, you know, at the top of the format, but definitely be a solid tier 2 or maybe tier 3 deck, which people will pull off from time to time, because, you know, it's a special mindset to mill your opponent, and people will have that mindset from time to time. So I think I would watch out for that, play, you know, effects which can shuffle back from my stuff to my library. However, on this format we don't have that many good ones. So I think one of the problems with mill decks in like modern, that there is the big Eldrazi which people incidentally play, and mill decks has a very hard time playing against those decks, because they have to surgical the Eldrazi with the effect on the stack and they remill you. So it's just really difficult. But in Pioneer though, even though some of the effects do exist which shuffle back our graveyard, a mill deck might just mill them to the graveyard and then we can't access them. So that's why the threat of them needing to double mill an opponent is very low in Pioneer. I think that's why this deck can be good. So watch out for cards which can really stall the game or mill a lot of cards, because I think this deck is gonna show up as an alternative linear strategy to attack the format. So yeah, so these were all the decks which I was collecting in the 3 videos. If you haven't done so, watch part 2 and part 1. Part 1 was about decks which were basically ported from previous standard format. They were absolutely, you know, dominant strategies, and I think they would transfer to Pioneer. Part 2 was generic strategies which technically exist in every format, like Mono Red, Control, White Winnie, and this video was about those strategies which were kind of existing in standard format. One wasn't really good, but the extended card pool will give them enough options that they can be a serious contender format. So thanks for following the series. I appreciate it a lot. I think this was one of these first thought experiments what I was doing with the new format, and I personally really enjoyed looking up cards for this. And also let me know in the comment section below if you think there is any other strategy or card to watch out which will definitely shape Pioneer in the beginning at least. And yep, appreciate you guys, and like the video, subscribe to the channels, and see you guys next time.